You've been reading on your own and trying to follow it. I'm constantly absorbed. I can't quite get enough of it. I don't know if I'm sure I've read it in the past, but never like I had been. And the whole concept with the author here trying to reveal the ultimate glory of Jesus Christ and where his glory comes from and why it is so revealing. So I'm going to read to you today again from the book of Hebrews. Today I'm reading chapter 10, 1 through 10. For since the law has put a shadow of the good things to come instead of the true form of these realities, it can never, by the same sacrifice which are continually offered year after year, make perfect those who draw near. Otherwise, would they not have ceased to be offered? If the worshippers had once been cleansed, they would no longer have any consciousness of sin. But in these sacrifices, there is a reminder of sin year after year. For it is impossible that the blood of bulls and goats should take away sin. Consequently, when Christ came into the world, he said, "Sacrifices and offerings that has no desire, but a body hast you prepared for me." He's speaking to God. "And burnt offerings and sin offerings you have taken no pleasure. Then I said, Lo, I have come to do the will of God, as it is written of me in the roll of the book." When he said above, "Thou hast neither desired nor taken pleasure in sacrifices and offerings and burnt offerings and sin offerings, these are offered according to the law." Then he added, "Lo, I have come to do your will." He abolished the first in order to establish the second. And by the will we have been sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once and for all. Survivor, a wonderful show. Survivor, the reality show. And salvation. You ever think of how surviving and salvation are actually one and the same? Survivor usually tends to be that bodily function. We got through this day. Yes, we survived it. We're talking about the here and the now. And salvation is still that of continuing our life, but in another aspect, in another worldly being. Now, I have not been able to watch even one reality show. They're so phony and there's nothing real about them. I can't get through them. But I have watched a couple of these commercials or segments from The Survivor. What people will do for $1 million. The bugs they will eat. The creatures they'll put in their mouth for $1 million. But if I were to ask those same people, if they wanted salvation, would they really be willing to do the same kinds of things for ongoing salvation that they're willing to do for $1 million? I wonder how many of us would be willing to do what it takes for salvation. Now, Christ didn't drink the blood of a cow or anything like the survivors do, but Christ did something very extraordinary. He gave his own blood. And that's what the book of Hebrews and the whole book, or most of the writings of Paul are about. And that is how Christ changed life. If you want to live by the law, you want to live by the rules, thinking, well, I didn't cheat, and I didn't do this, and I didn't do that, you're going to live by the old law where you need to kill a cow or something to have salvation, where Christ's salvation is all about relationships. Christ constantly talks, I am one with the Father. What I do is what the Father wants me to do. If you want to know God, get to know me. We are one and the same. It's about a relationship that is so wonderful, so powerful, that it is unbreakable. And it is because he was in great relationship with God that he also was in great relationship with you and me. It was his relationship with all human beings that made Jesus the Christ. He did everything that God wanted him to do, and by loving God, it automatically meant he would love us. I'm still so confused when I listen to so much of the teachings of Jesus Christ, especially this time of year, about forgiveness and salvation on the TV, and how people have it so backwards. It seems that there's two extremes. There's the one group of theology and theologians that make it as if it doesn't matter what you've done. God's grace is so good, so powerful, that it doesn't matter what you've done in life, it doesn't matter what attitude you have in life. At the end of your life, Christ is going to meet you, and Christ's grace is going to purify you. And so just live and let be. It doesn't matter if you're a Hitler or a murderer or whatever. Just live and let be. Well, I think today's reading in Matthew challenges that. Where Christ says, at the very opening, the gate is narrow. Not everyone's going to get through it. And just because you did wonderful things, he goes on to say, Lord, Lord, I did all these wonderful things for you. Doesn't that mean I'm set? And God says, Christ says, no, I don't even know you. Because you weren't in relationship. Christ says there's only two laws. Love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And the two are one, because when you love God, you're going to love all God's children. And when you love your neighbor, you're not going to cheat with your neighbor on them in adultery, because you love them. When you love your neighbor, and your neighbor doesn't just mean those you know. Let's say you're selling a car and you paint up all the rust and you say, I can get another $4,000 if I keep my mouth shut, and you shaft this person. That's not loving your neighbor. In a loving relationship, everything we do is about bringing us together, and we're fair and we're even. We don't need the laws and all the doctrines of the church, because when we love people, we will treat them in a way that God wants us to treat. So we're in a great relationship with God and people at the same time. Now, at the other end of the scale are the hardliners that think, still want to preach about the law. If you've had an abortion, you're going to hell. If you've committed murder, you're automatically going to hell. If you stole, you're going to hell. And it doesn't matter what you've done, you're going to hell. And you've got to constantly be born again, and you've got to do all these wonderful rituals that have nothing to do with the salvation of Jesus Christ. So, I was thinking of this, and I'm not sure if I've used this analogy before, but where is the middle road? Let me start not so much talking about the actual theological part. All of us know where North Bay is, I think. And if you're living in southwestern Ontario, there's many ways to get to the 400, but most likely you're going to end up on the 400 if you're going to North Bay. So if you're heading to North Bay, once you get to Barrie now, that's where the trick comes in. Because you see, you can either stay on Highway 11, which will take you to North Bay, or if you goof and got on the wrong highway, you're going to go up to Sudbury. Now, you don't need to panic, though. People turn on the wrong highways, and I see people turning trucks and cars around on highways and killing each other, and because they're all panicking. You don't need to panic. There's all kinds of routes from Highway 69, or which is now 400, over back to 11. You just take these other routes, and you get back to 11, you get back on track. But now if you're like me, and especially when you travel with a Jeep, that's not so easy. Because you see, all these routes are filled with temptations. And I love the bush. And I love the lakes. And so it's easy, well, I'm going to head over to Highway 11. Well, I'm going to take this little trail first. And then you go, man, this is gorgeous. Well, why do I want to go? This is a beautiful town. It has great lakes. It has nice bush. It has everything else. Why would I go to North Bay? I have to really have it in my mind to go to North Bay if I'm going to get there, because all these routes are so gorgeous, they're so tempting to just follow and stay on, that I may never get to North Bay. Now once I get to Sudbury though, it's over, because Sudbury's above North Bay and there's no more crossing over. So let's take this same analogy and turn it a little bit into a theological statement. We're all on the same highway heading towards what we call heaven. Bliss. Christ says that heaven is like a banquet, an eternal banquet, the best banquet. It's more beautiful than the best pearl ever designed. So heaven is this bliss. We don't know what heaven is, but we know it's love. The one thing we know when we're in relationship with God, we're in a relationship of love that you can't imagine. The love is so powerful, and that's all we need to know about heaven. Of course, if we follow this other highway, we go to Hades. Now what's Hades? I don't know if it's fire and that, but what I do know from what I read, it's the absence of any form of love. You've withdrawn from God. God didn't withdraw from you. You've withdrawn from God so far that there is no sense of love. You're on your own in a pit of darkness. But now, you know what? Again, it doesn't matter if we've taken this road and we're heading to Sudbury. Jesus died so we can always come across and come back to the right highway. But isn't there a temptation? This little road here takes us to sex. Whoa! And we just have sex all our life. The heck with heaven. This is like our own paradise. You know, that's a great road to stay on, but it's not going to get you to heaven. You know, it's kind of like getting over here, and in the end, you've separated yourself from God. And then there's a road, maybe it's power. Let's go up the road of power. I'm going to rule so many people, so many companies. I'm going to be in charge of so much. It's really tempting to take all these other roads. It might be a road of anger. You've been angry at your sister, your cousin, and you're just going to hang on to that road of anger. But they can all come back. That's what we need to know, because it's all about relationships. If you go up any one of these roads and somehow your life ends, but you were in the right relationship with God, Christ will come and get you. When you're on this road of absolute no salvation, no relationship, that's when we separate ourselves from God.